immigrants get tax relief for an indefinite period of time. What do we say to them when they create this smokescreen of stuff? What do we say to them?
Stop watching Fox TV.
Stop watching Fox TV, okay?
Yeah.
What else do we say to them? We're not coming from a level playing field, okay? Part of what happens to folks like us is that we become defensive in the face of that stuff because those people don't necessarily come with logic. They come with a lot of emotion, they come with a lot of anger, and they come with a lot of force in our engagement. One of the things as practitioners, as people who are fighting for justice, we have to come ready to battle with swords. We need to come ready to battle with, our ninja sticks. I was a teenage Ninja Turtle fan, right? So we have to come to battle with some weapons. And all too often, we haven't been given the weapons that are right in front of us, okay? We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, and I mean humanity are created equal. What does that come from? It is the Declaration of Independence. As freedom fighters, that is a tool that we have to use because the enemies of justice and injustice will use. They'll say, it's the Constitution, it's the Constitution, it's the Constitution. I would ask us, how many of us have read the Constitution? No, you don't have to answer that. You don't have to answer, but I want you to think about that, right? So the Constitution of the United States gives us the power and the ability to even have this conversation about cultural competence. What event in 1964 had a profound impact on American civil society? 1964. The signing of the Civil Rights Act, right? What happened in 1990 that has a profound impact on how people access the workplace? The Americans with Disability Act, right? If you want to be a true warrior and not just give lip service to this concept of cultural competence or this concept of equality, you need to start putting some quills in your pack, right? So you know what you're talking about. And then when those idiots of injustice start talking, you can dismantle them and just, right? Anybody seen that movie, Hungry?
Hungry Games.
Okay, the Hungry Activities, right? The Hunger Games, right? I got a whole workshop on that because I just loved it. I was crying in the movie. V for Vendetta is another movie where I just wept. I was just like, yes, the people can stand up, right? So let's get going because I don't want to take too much time for my political rhetoric. But it is important that as practitioners that we start to understand some of those things. The general outline, we'll learn the definitions and guiding assumptions about race, racism, and cultural competence, because I believe that they're all connected. I also will give you access to this presentation because we will not get through all 98 slides, all right? And understand the conscious and unconscious mores of our culture, and extend the experiences from different people of different racial heritages, and explore the costs and benefits of working to end racism through building on cultural strengths. All right? So it's important that we understand this particular concept of discrimination. And as the affirmative action officer, I oftentimes combat this kind of stuff, right? So these are where we have laws. If someone gets sexually harassed, they go to, the HR department, they file a complaint if someone needs an accommodation. I mean, there are all these laws around that kind of stuff. And so what the government has said is that it examines discrimination, and it comes in two forms. There is harassment, and then there is retaliation. And harassment can come along racial lines, gender lines, religious lines, age, and disability. All right? So that's just a basic framework around the discrimination and and other stuff. So this is me talking.
Bigotry, prejudice, and discrimination.
So I wanted to, before we can get to this cultural competence stuff, we got to go back to preschool, right? And get some basic foundations about how we talk to each other and why we talk to each other the way that we do. All right? So first of all, what is the word bigotry? What does bigotry mean? What is bigotry?
Ignorant hate.
It's what?
Ignorant hate.
Ignorant hate. Bigotry. Okay, so in American, some of us are old enough to be able to respond to this question. What, in American pop culture, who was America's favorite bigot?
Archie Bunker.
Archie Bunker, all right? And can you, for those of us who remember Archie Bunker, can you describe some of the attributes of Archie Bunker?
He felt he was better than other people.
Okay, so he felt that he was better than other people. What else?
He was sexist.
He was sexist.
Close-minded.
He was closed-minded. He was racist. What else?
Angry.
He was angry. Okay. He was very opinionated. All right. Who's a more modern archetype, if you will, for that Archie Bunker kind of person? Rush Limbaugh. Okay. I was speaking specifically about a character. With, typically, I don't know if you've ever seen that. Homer Simpson. Okay. I've watched The Office, and I think Michael Scott, the manager on The Office, played by Steve Carell, is an archetype a character that fits that archetype. All right. So Archie Bunker was on television for 10 years. His series was on for 10 years. And then he had another series after that called Archie's Place that was on for another 5 years. So a total of 15 years on American Airways. Why do you think Archie Bunker, being all of those negative things that we just described, was able to spend 15 years in our living rooms?
Because he said things that people wanted to say but couldn't say.
Okay, so he said things that people wanted to say but couldn't say. What else?
But there was also a level of satirization, I think, of him. I mean, he was a spoof kind of for enlightened people. They just were laughing at how ridiculous he was.
So for enlightened people, we were laughing at how ridiculous he was. So I do comedy, mostly improv kind of stuff. And yes, sir.
He was on TV longer than that. Actually, he was in the heat of the night. He was the sheriff on the heat of the night.
Right. But I do want to make a clarification that was Carol O'Connor that was in the heat of the night. That was not Archie Bunker. Right? So we will, Carol O'Connor was the person who played both characters. And he played that particular character in the heat of the night in an attempt to offset all of the things that he did the 15 years before. So I will put that in a context for you. So thank you for bringing that up. And so in the comedy that we did in improv, there are a bunch of rules that allow improv to work. But one of the things that we started to understand and we talked about is why we laugh at things or why we find things funny. And typically we find things funny for two reasons. One is that we think that we're smarter than the thing that's happening or the person that we're laughing at, or that the person that we're laughing at is what? Smarter than us, to the point that it becomes ridiculous, right? So those are the two things two reasons why we laugh. So when I think about Archie Bunker, it's very clear to me that there were people who obviously agreed with what he said and saw that he was a mouthpiece for them, and then other people who saw him as satirical, that people possibly couldn't think in these ways, all right? So Archie Bunker had an individual in his family, in his life, that would try to bring him information about the world, right? And what was that character's name? Meathead, right? So Meathead would come to Archie Bunker with information and say, Archie, it's not like that. It's like this, this, and this. And how would Archie respond to that information?
Anger.
With anger. How else would he respond?
Disbelief.
Disbelief.
Edith, bring me a beer.
Edith, bring me a beer, right? So he would kind of laugh it off. He wouldn't take that information seriously.
Sit down in his chair.
What's that?
He would sit down.
He would sit down in his chair, right?
He'd sit down.
So bigotry. So when we bring bigots information, how do they respond to the information that we give them?
They tell us we're stupid.
They tell us that we're stupid.
Disbelief.
They shrug it off.
Disbelief.
In disbelief. All right, so I'm going to leave bigots alone for a second. I'm going to go to prejudice. All right, so I am going to say some things, actually, as a disclaimer, I'm going to say some things that you don't have to agree with. That does not make me wrong. Right? So I'm going to say some things that you may not necessarily agree with or be able to work with, which is fine. Prejudice. I believe that being prejudiced is a good thing. I believe that being prejudiced is a good thing. I'm walking down the street at about 11:30 at night. I see a group of 5 guys in front of me, and they're wrestling and tussling with each other. What decision do I make? I cross the street. Why?
That might be dangerous.
I'm being prejudiced. I am prejudging the situation, oftentimes based on information that I have in the past. So I make the decision to cross the street. I'm being prejudiced.
Does that come in with safety too?
It could come with safety, right? But let's take this a little bit further. I'm at the Mall of America. I'm using the same mentality that I used at 11:30 at night on the street. And I'm walking in the aisles of Mall of America, and I see 5 guys wrestling and tussling with each other. So what decision do I make?
Go around.
I cross the aisle. The only problem is, over here, there's what? 5 more people wrestling and tussling. So I decide to go over here, and what happens? When we take our prejudicial thinking outside of its context and try to apply it to every situation in our lives, we have a problem. And so prejudiced people, that typically is their problem. They're taking one strand or one idea, one concept, and trying to apply it to every situation in their lives. All right? Now, is bigotry a thought, a feeling, or is bigotry a thought? Is it an emotion, or is it an action? All of them? Okay.
I was going to say it's a belief, a learned belief.
Okay. What I'd like to submit to you is that bigotry is an emotion. Because no matter how much information you give a bigot, they still feel the way they do. All right? And I'd like to offer to you that prejudice is a thought. It's a construct that you make about a decision you're going to make. It's this mental gymnastics that you take yourself through. And if I'm given the enough information or the right information, I can actually change how I think about something. All right? So, in our human evolution, in our civil processes, have we come to a point where I can legislate how people feel? The emotional state that people can have. Can I legislate that? No, I cannot legislate that. It's obvious that there are certain feelings and emotions that I would prefer people not have, right? Particularly if they want to hurt themselves or hurt other people. I would prefer that they not have those, but I can't legislate or make them not have those feelings. All right? I'd also like to offer to you that we also are not at a place where I can legislate how someone thinks. Right? I can't legislate that. Obviously, there are thoughts that I would wish that people would not have, but I can't make somebody have a certain kind of thought. And so what I also like to submit to you is the fact that people are allowed and can be bigots.